Hello people, today I'm doing a tier list of the whole MCU. I like making these videos and you guys clearly like them because these videos always do pretty well. So if I did a tier list every single time there's a new MCU thing, that'd just be too much. So I figured it's the end of the year, we just wrapped up Hawkeye, so let's just do our next tier list because I have not added it with, I don't think I've done a tier list with What If, Hawkeye, No Way Home, or Eternals. So I think we have enough to make the tier list interesting enough. Because, besides that, most of the stuff is going to be the same. Maybe 2 or 3 maybe tweaked, but let's just get this started. Screen recording, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so yeah, first off, I just renamed the categories, so that's why it's that. Anyways, we have Iron Man, and easily it's going to go in the amazing tier. Of course, Iron Man is a movie that semi-introduced the Marvel formula. It introduced a different type of comedy, a little bit more PG-13-ish type of action movie, but the charisma Robert Downey Jr. brings to the role, and looking back on this movie and, the rest of the MCU just heightens this movie so much. Of course, we have the villain that can feel a little lackluster, but besides that, it's a great origin that tackles some really cool political issues. If you guys thought other movies were political, look at Iron Man. This probably might be even more like the most political Superman, I can't talk, superhero film there is, besides maybe 1 or 2 else in the MCU. But the point is, I love this movie. I thought casting was great. I still think I like Terrence Howard more as Rhodey in this movie, but I didn't get particularly attached to him. So yeah. Anyways, next up we have the Incredible Hulk. I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to do it every time. Bad. I don't think the movie's very good. It's laughable, I think. I don't like almost any choice they did with this movie. The CGI on Hulk, Edward Norton's okay, but he's given a really bad script, so I don't know how I feel. His love interest in the movie and that dynamic is just unbearable. Abomination is just kind of shoehorned in. And at the end of the day, you're left with characters you don't care about, with a CGI fight that you don't care about. And yeah, overall summary of the movie is I don't care about it. Anyways, next up we have Shang-Chi. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the great tier. I think there's a lot of great symbolism and inner meanings within this movie. I think they get the the messaging and all that so well done, and it has probably one of the better family and core and personal scripts there is in the whole MCU. Only thing that holds us back a little bit is that mostly just the Marvelisms, off-time comedy, CGI that takes you out of the movie, moments where you just kind of don't know what's happening. It's just a CGI blurge, and yeah. But I will say there are moments in the third act of this movie where it's not undercut by crappy comedy. You actually have a moment to appreciate what's happening. And the sad thing is with these action sequences, they were great choreography, but when these green screens are happening, I can't, that's why I love, Winter Soldier. There's barely any green, from what I could tell, it looks like there's barely any green screens, particularly the highway fight. That looks all real to me. There's not a single moment of CG where I'm like, oh, that's CG right there. So that's why I could sit back and appreciate the choreography, because it feels real to me. Moments like in this movie, we have great choreography going on, but the back looks fake. So I'm like, is there any part of this, choreography that's fake? And so when I'm questioning the legitimacy of the choreography and how cool it looks, it kind of takes me out of the movie. But besides that, I think even though, like I said, it's undercut some dramatic moments with comedy, I think there is still some pretty strong comedy in this movie that works on its own. Similarly, I thought was great as Shang-Chi himself, and I'm not in love with Awkwafina's character. I know a lot of people do like her, but at the end of the day, when I think about this movie, what works about it is that it's script and how family-centric it is, and how messaging heavy it is, and it all is a really touching message. But yeah, Anyways, next is going to be the one that people are going to get mad at me about, and I am afraid to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Infinity War. Good. And I think I recently assessed this movie because, and I want to explain why I think I think it's a good movie. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just, I think it's mid-tier Marvel. And I hate to say that, but it's how I feel. And what makes me feel this way is the fact that this is the movie everything goes down in this movie. Without a doubt. Everything happens here. Thanos snaps, kills half of the population. But what bothers me most about this movie is, yes, it's entertaining. It has fantastic action sequences, some of the sharpest CG you get in the whole MCU. The whole entire Titan sequence is great. Thanos is great. Josh Brolin's great. The whole cast is great. And overall, the characters are pretty well balanced. It's just I never, ever once in the whole movie feel the weight of the situation that they're in. I never feel the weight of Thanos is here. And I get that they try to portray that, but when we're about to fight Thanos for, the fate of half the universe, and Star-Lord's like, putting a bomb on his back and flipping him off as he's going through a Doctor Strange portal, and my audience just burst up into laughter. I'm just like, it just felt kind of weightless to me. And I know it's a hot take, and I know people might disagree with me, and I'll say, I did feel weight once Thanos showed up in Wakanda, and they were doing like slow-mo, and the score was swelling, and there wasn't any jokes. It was like, and that part of the movie was great. It just felt like too little too late to me when it comes to the weightness of what they're in. And and of course then you see all your Avengers, half of them disappear, but they're coming back. People were crying in my theater. I'm like, they're coming back. Like, they're doing Avengers movie a year from now. Like, you really think they're introducing these characters and just immediately killing them off? And I guess, like, sure, you want to go along with the Marvel thing, but it's how I feel about the movie. Like I said, it's entertaining. I could sit back, relax, and have a really fun time with this movie, but I don't feel like that's what I should be saying about a movie like Avengers Infinity War. I feel like it's a movie I need to mentally prep for, make sure I'm emotionally ready for it, watch it, be bombarded with visuals and blown away by how deep it is, and be shocked by the end. But no, I sit down and watch it and I have a fun time. And I hate saying that, but it's how I feel. And so if you want to tell me how wrong I am about that, go ahead, because no, there's no such thing as a right or wrong opinion. So yeah. Anyways, next up we have What If. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the disappointing one. Particularly, I don't even know if I want to watch season 2 to this. There is some episodes that stood out very well. Like, I love the Doctor Strange episode, and that's about it. All the other episodes just felt there to me. And I hate to say that. Particularly the episode where I just kind of was done with the show was pretty late into the show, but I knew I was just kind of over it. That's when we got to the Party Thor episode. I could not stand that episode. I could not wait for it to be over, and I did not like almost anything about that episode. I thought it was really stupid. But there was some great moments in specific episodes. It's just I couldn't get attached to any of these situations. I always thought if it was okay, it was just fine. I never was dying to see the next What If episode like I was with the other Marvel shows. But overall, that's what I have to say. Next up, we have Wanda Vision. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the great tier above Shangshi. And the reason why I put this a little bit higher than most people is just because how original and creative it was. I've never seen a show like this, and no one has ever seen a show like this. And of course, people will say it kind of flukes the last episode. And while I can kind of agree with that, I don't like how just Wanda is just kind of like forgiven and flies away. It feels very weird. And I know they had to do reshoots, and I get that. And that's why I guess I'm a little bit nicer to it, because there was reshoots and they had to reshoot it. They couldn't finish the VFX in time apparently for what they wanted to do. But yeah, like great performances by Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, who played Agatha, Catherine Ham, She was great. The rest, Jimmy Woo, Darcy, and Rambo, they were all entertaining. I wasn't as invested in the storyline as I was invested with the Wanda and Vision storyline. But overall, I just had a lot of fun with the creativeness that they had. I had a lot of fun with the like the episode by episode basis of like little nods to the MCU, but keeping it subtle and like a little mystery unfolding. And so it really does have that different feel to it, and that's what I really liked about the show. And I know I have it higher than others because the last episode bothers a lot of people. It doesn't bother me that much. I know because I get it, it's COVID thing, but yeah. Anyways, next up we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I'm gonna easily in the best tier. This movie is everything. It really is. I never seen a movie capture exactly what I want in a comic book movie, particularly a Captain America's grounded spy movie like this movie does. The action sequences here pack a punch. You feel the weight to everything, and like it really makes you fall in love with Steve Rogers character. Natasha's in this movie, and she has a she's used perfectly. Nick Fury's in this movie, he's used perfectly. The way that they take the Winter Soldier is so good. They introduce so much into this movie, but yet it feels pretty focused overall. And so that's what I love about it. It's so like straightforward but impactful at the same time, because nowadays when we have MCU stuff, you could kind of feel it when they go out of their way to set something up for the future, like another Disney Plus show or something like that. But with the Winter Soldier, you never feel that. It just feels natural to what's happening. So yeah, easily best tier. Next up we have Ant-Man. This is going into the fine tier. It's a very enjoyable movie, but yet, and I think the dynamic between Scott and his daughter is what holds the movie up as much as it does. But when you have this generic of a villain and of a plot, I just can't help but go like, eh. At moments, of course there's some fun action and you chuckle here and there, and they have, and you know, the scale of stuff is used pretty well. It's just, the story itself I'm not invested in. Paul Rudd's funny. Villain, good lord. I don't like the actor that played the villain. I don't like the villain himself. Almost every choice of the villain just threw me off. And Michael Pena is funny. The storyline can feel a little similar. But it's a fun watch. You know, you could sit back, just have fun with, you know, funny moments of Paul Rudd, some creative action sequences, and yeah. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's going to go in the amazing tier above Iron Man. This movie, for me at least, is the one where I watched it into the theaters. I'm like, yeah, every movie that has the name Marvel attached to it, I'm seeing it from now on. And remember, when this movie came out, I was like around 10 years old. So, and of course, up until that point, I really have seen every Marvel movie. It's just, I didn't have any particularly big interest in seeing Guardians, and then I saw it, and I was like, that was great. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, it just has so much heart, gathers together this team in a very emotionally satisfying way, but yet these ridiculous ideas just blending together so well, and it wouldn't work without James Gunn. And yeah, the whole movie's great. Next up, we have Avengers Endgame in the amazing tier. And I think last tier list I put it in the great tier, but this time I boosted it up to the amazing tier. And just because I don't think I give the movie enough credit, to be honest. There are some things that throw me off, particularly like with like I'm still not in love with that Thor, but I like Professor Hulk, and I know a lot of people are vice versa with that. But yeah, no, sorry, I'm blanking right now. But it's so, you know, when you talk about these Marvel movies, you know, you do a tier list. It's, you know, I'm trying to think of something I haven't already said before, but they close out the movie in the most satisfying way possible. The last 30 minutes, the beginning hour and the last 30 minutes to this movie is absolutely perfect. So, like, and then of course we have that chunk right in the middle, where I thought was still very, very entertaining. You get great character moments, particularly in the second act, which I didn't even think the movie would even try to go for, and they pull it off very well, particularly with Tony, Cap, and almost everyone. The way in and that's another thing. Like with Thor, I wish they did something a little bit different with this character, because I don't know if Hemsworth was going for comedic or not when he was like crying in Asgard, because my theater was laughing when he just started breaking down, and I'm like, is that what he was going for with his acting? And a lot of like gray area with that when it comes on my end. But the third act of this movie, everyone loves to talk about that third act, and it is a lot of fun. It's not as like Infinity War. It's not as heavy as I would like it to be, but it's another pretty good Marvel movie. It closes out the MCU and just the most well, at least like the first big chunk of the MCU and the big storyline pretty well. You have all these characters that you just love, and it's a little bit more well balanced because it's not as many characters as Infinity War. You particularly get to dive deep in with Natasha in this movie, and yeah, they get a lot right in this movie. So yeah, next up we have Thor, and this is going to go into the fine tier as well. And I would have a couple months ago put it in the good or great, but I watched it again, and I like it. It's a good movie. It's just there's particular storylines that I think they could have done better, particularly with the way how the movie starts and the way that the movie goes in the middle and the way the movie ends. It just feels a little like, so we started on Asgard, then we go to Earth, and Earth is not nearly as interesting, but it's nice to see that deep dive into almost psychologically into Thor. So like a lot of that is great too. But this movie's rewatch value is almost non-existent. This movie is not very rewatchable, and I'll say like this movie, they get a lot of stuff right. I thought the CG still holds up in this movie pretty well, and the score I thought to this one was particularly really, really good. And yeah, in Loki, once again, fantastic villain. And this is, the first two Thor movies, you never particularly latched onto Thor as a character because he's just, he was Thor in these movies. So maybe that's why putting him onto the Earth with characters I'm not particularly invested in. Of course, we have Natalie Portman, who's okay in the movie. You have Darcy, which I found particularly annoying. Then you have I forget which Skarsgård it is. It's one of the Skarsgårds, and he's funny in the movie. And of course, you have those cool MCU tie-ins like right in the middle. And Hemsworth gives a great performance. It's just overall not very rewatchable. Thanks for the Disney Plus email. Next up, we have Captain America: The First Avenger. I am sorry, putting this one in the bad tier. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I can't. The first hour of this movie is fine, and then the last hour of this movie makes me go, it was supposed to be done an hour ago, because Captain America completes his arc, but then you still have a whole lot of movie to go through. And because his arc as becoming Captain America is done pretty early, not about halfway through the movie, then he still has to defeat Red Skull. But here's the thing, you have no connection between Captain America and Red Skull at all. So I really couldn't help but stop caring, and that's the thing that really sucks. Cap is going to end up in the ice. He is. So you can almost see where the movie's going, and you stopped caring in the first place. So that's what bothers me the most about this movie. And everything about this movie points to I should love it. I love the time period. I love the Captain America character. The cast, I thought they got almost pitch perfect. It's just that last half of the movie just makes me go, yeah, he's Captain America now. This is where the movie should have ended. And that's the thing, like a simple little tweak to the script, like maybe should have have him accept his role as Captain America a little bit later into the film. Just would have fixed everything. So yeah, because when you stop caring that early, it just makes you go, okay. So next up, we have Doctor Strange. That's going to go into the great tier above Shang-Chi, not as good as Wanda Vision. Shang-Chi is I'm not Shang-Chi. Doctor Strange is one of the more, visual MCU films, and you dive deep into the mystic arts and all that. And overall, I think they did a pretty good job with this. Of course, you had Tilda Swinton in this movie, who I think gave a phenomenal performance. Benedict Cumberbatch, who I think is great as well. And the villain in this one is another Marvel villain that's not very, very good at all. And yeah, but besides that, diving, like Iron Man, when you dive deep psychologically into this person, and you get that psychological breakdown, you get like this, you're introduced to this whole new world, and it's so fascinating to dive into, and the action, not the action sequences, but more like the mystic art sequences are so entertaining. And the comedy in this one, I think this one a little bit more, I thought this one was particularly funny, particularly the Christine bit in the hospital. I thought that was pretty funny. And yeah, I hope they do more with her in Multiverse of Madness, but I think she was in the trailer in the after credit for No Way Home. So yeah, overall, Doctor Strange, it's a pretty fun Marvel movie. It has those fun Marvel skeptical moment, I'm not saying the word, I'm saying the word right, but it's the comedy's pretty good. Of course, villains a little, we've seen this before, but overall, I still think it's a great MCU movie. Next up, we have Captain America: Civil War, who's easily going into the best tier above Winter Soldier. Civil War was just, oof. Like, I still think about this movie to this day, and it feels like not enough people talk about it now, because like Winter Soldier, it pulled off that way of having a story, having it feel having it feel straightforward, but yet having subtle little setups that have great impacts into the rest of the MCU. And people complain about this, oh, it feels so unimpactful. But if this movie never existed, there would be no such thing as Infinity War. It'd be such a thing. Endgame wouldn't be a thing. Because if this movie never happened, they would have won in Infinity War. And that's what I thought the point was. I thought the point was they split up the Avengers so they could lose in Infinity War, because then they unite again in Endgame so they could win. And I thought that was the point the whole time. And that's what I love about like how they kind of like wrapped it all up and keeping the core characters of Cap and Iron Man. Because when you see my two favorite Avengers butt heads like this, you can see both sides. Back when this movie came out, I was like, yeah, Team Iron Man. But now, and I'm a little bit older, I'm team both, because it's like almost political. So there's some politics situations where I'm personally like, I don't know. There's some political situations where I'm like, I'm sticking with this guy. So yeah, it's a very complicated moral movie. It has some of the best fight sequences, like the brutal fight between Cap and Iron Man and Bucky at the end is just perfect and everything I want. Even though like in that, if I had to complain about something, is Black Panther felt a little just kind of like shoved into the third act all of a sudden, because he doesn't really have a scene with Cap or Iron Man. He just has a scene with Zemo, and so it always just kind of cuts to him, and so it's never, I don't know if it was a reshoot. It feels like a reshoot to me, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's the way they intended, but it always feels like it's kind of off to me when Black Panther is shown in the third act like that. Anyways, we have Avengers next, which is going to go into the great tier as well. And would I put this above Wanda Vision? Yeah. The Avengers, what more can you say about like these older ones? Like, it's so hard to talk about these older ones, because particularly the good ones, because if you praise it, you just don't want to say the same praises every time. But it's just so entertaining. A couple months ago, I think I had it a lot higher, but I think I lowered it a little bit my most recent rewatch. But seeing the Avengers unite for the very first time in this movie again, it's just so satisfying to watch. Seeing these OG Avengers, and it's so cool. And what the cool thing about this is, like, after this movie got more and more movies of these individual characters, and so you go back and watch this and you feel a lot more to it, because you got more to these characters afterwards separately. And I need to watch this again. Since Hawkeye's done, that'd probably be a good watch. But yeah, Loki in this movie wasn't written very consistently to what they set up in the first Thor movie, because he was one of the stronger points of the Thor movie. And so to see him go from like this morally conflicted person to just straight up evil like that was like a little okay. But yeah, the action sequences, the whole New York battle with the sky beam, it's classic. So yeah. Next up, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home. This is going into the good tier. It's a very fun summer blockbuster. I have quite a lot of fun with the action in this movie, the visuals. This might be the sharpest CG in the whole MCU. It really might be. Um, Really entertaining. Tom Holland. He has a lot of charisma into the role, and of course, this movie has that problem that I don't want to keep on expressing because someone told me one time that I'm just listening too much of High Tops Films videos. So, but I want to say it's not a great Spider-Man movie because it's not so much of Peter being an idiot. Because after No Way Home, I don't really think that anymore. I think that was almost the point to make Peter an idiot in this movie because of the way that No Way Home paid that off. What bothers me about this movie is the inclusion of Stark. Because when we get lines like, Stark said you wouldn't get that because it's not a Star Wars reference, I'm like, it feels so lazy to me. It, like, here's the Edith glasses from Tony Stark, and then it just feels so, like, the Edith glasses, and it just felt so, the writing behind that just felt very, very strange, and, like, maybe Sony was cut out, all they knew was Tony dies, and that's it, but well, they must have known because they were talking about the blip. But it just felt so weird because they didn't, like, Fury was dusted and he was brought back, like, as soon as Tony died. So when did he have that conversation with Fury about him not understand? Just like little moments like that, and it's sprinkled throughout the whole movie. The inclusion of the character of Brad, unbearable character, shouldn't have been in the movie. He would have probably been a fun deleted scene thing where I could look at that. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad they deleted that, but I guess that was kind of funny. But the more he's into the movie, the more annoying it gets. The teachers, people complain about the teacher comedy. I actually think they're pretty funny in this movie. But overall, it's a fun summer blockbuster. Jake Gyllenhaal's great in the movie, but overall, I'm not in love with it. Next up, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Going in the disappointed tier, better than What If. I have them on the same part. So I'm just going to put it right there because I got to What If first. Ant-Man and the Wasp might be the most disappointed I've ever walked out of a Marvel film. And it's not necessarily a bad movie. And it's not like I'm in love with the first Ant-Man movie, but to see a step down from how promising I thought the trailers looked, and some of the lazy writing that we got, and I thought they were going to double down on the creativity and the action sequences, but yet to see that they revealed too much in the trailers. Once again, Paul Rudd's funny. I'm not in love with Evangeline Lilly's nor Michael Douglas's character. Michelle Pfeiffer's in this movie, and she has probably the most stupid moment of the MCU. Hands on face, you're healed now. And there's a lot of inconsistencies with this movie and how the quantum realm works that still makes absolutely no sense to me. Because, particularly, I was just bringing up Endgame. Scott's in the quantum realm for 5 hours. And even though it was 5 years, then why Michelle Pfeiffer's character was stuck in the quantum realm for about 30 years? Then why did she age that long if it was only 30 hours it was barely 2 days for her, technically. And she's saying how much she learned about it. The quantum realm has a lot of inconsistent rules. Maybe they'll explain it in Quantumania. Maybe explain why he was in it for 5 hours. Maybe it's just a different part of the quantum realm. All you need to say something like that, but all I know, it's bothering me right now. So yeah. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I want to do something very shocking that most people won't do. Great tier, at the top of the great tier. And yes, I know this movie has some pacing issues. I'm aware of that. But I almost appreciate its clunkiness. Because when you slow down, and with James Gunn's writing, and you really know these characters, it's really well. And when it slows down like that, and plus the emotional payoff that the very last scene of the movie has, particularly with Yondu, whoa! It's like, of course, yes, it did have pacing issues, but it's almost like that very ending of the movie almost asks you to forgive that, and I partially do. And of course, I thought the Kurt Russell as Ego was still one of Marvel's better villains. It's not like he was particularly memorable, but he didn't do anything particularly like, oh, that's a bad villain moment. I thought, the whole cast was great again. CG was pretty sharp in this movie. It's a very entertaining and fun movie. I think I watched this like 3 times in theaters. And yeah, I think it's one of the more underrated projects of the MCU. Next up, we have Captain Marvel, Disappointed Tear. The thing that bothers me about this movie, it just feels so soulless to me. And what sucks about it even more is I see what they were going for, and to see it fall as flat as it did, particularly with the writing. I think Brie Larson's a great actress, and I think she did the best with the crappy script she had to work with. And I like Thor. Excuse me. There's a way to make it work where fish out of water scenario, and to so have Carol Danvers down on Earth didn't necessarily feel boring per se. It's just what they chose to do with like the middle chunk of the movie felt bland visually, stylistically, directing. Oh, it felt very lazy within the middle portion. The last battle is entertaining. It tries to go for like a fun feel, and I do have fun with the last battle of the movie. But overall, it just kind of falls flat. Next up, we have Iron Man 3. It's going in the good... Oh, no, I don't want that. It's going in the good tier. Above Far From Home. I don't know. I haven't... I'll just put it... Since I went to Infinity War first. Great. Sorry for the awkward cut. Anyways, we're talking about Iron Man 3. I think it's overall a pretty good Iron Man movie. I think it hits hard on the message about, I like Tony Stark being Iron Man. There's not a difference between Tony Stark and Iron Man, the way that they kind of wrap that up, and the way they kind of wrap up his character arc in this movie, but find a way to continue it later that kind of makes you question the point of this. But overall, it's a very bold MCU movie that it's not a lot like what we've seen before. A lot of like the posters to this movie was so good. Like, look at that poster. But there's a lot to like about this movie, and it's another movie that suffers from a villain problem, and it also suffers from a pacing thing, and yeah, and particularly some action sequences I don't care for, but yet the visuals, there's some really great visuals in this movie. But yeah, next up we have Black Widow. That's gonna go into the good tier. It's one of those. It's probably Black Widow is like the most by the numbers Marvel movie there is, and it's entertaining. You have a lot of fun with it, and you laugh. You watch it and you have fun. But it has the same MCU problems: some weird comedy, some off CGI, and a third act that isn't as strong as the rest of the movie, and a villain problem. So there you go. It's all into one. So it's good. You have fun with it, but there's problems there. There you go. That's all I have to say. Next up, we have Eternals. It's gonna hurt some people when I do this, but I'm literally about to put Eternals above Infinity War, and I don't care. It's in the good tier, obviously. Eternals is a different MCU movie where I'm not complaining about CGI and awkward comedy. I'm complaining about different things. So, and there is definitely an overabundance of material put into this movie, but I think it was pretty well pulled off for the amount that they had to deal with. So I think that's an accomplishment within itself. I thought some of the action sequences were really good. I thought the forest sequence was phenomenal. There were some great visuals in this movie. CGI kind of got wonky in the third act, but minus that, before that, I thought the CGI was pretty good. The comedy, I thought, really worked in this movie. It never really undercuts the serious moments. And there was a twist here I thought was pretty good. I was shocked by it. And I thought it was pretty good overall. And I know it's the lowest rated Marvel movie, but I disagree with that. And I like that it was a different taste than what we're used to. So yeah, next up we have Thor: The Dark World. Gonna put it in disappointing at the top, disappointing. And yes, Thor: The Dark World I don't think is very good, but I don't think it nearly gets enough credit that it's due. I think there was a lot of good things going on, but overall I think it overall lacked spirit and energy. like, of course, this probably is the most glaring villain problem that we've ever seen. I think there's some really cool designs. The production design I thought was really good. I thought some of the cinematography was pretty cool looking. I thought the sets were great. Definitely maybe like one of the best looking Marvel movies, I think, personally. The planet designs I thought were pretty cool. I thought the action sequences in the third act were fun. And it's just, it feels, I don't feel anything, I'm not invested, and because I'm not invested in Thor's character, this is a huge villain problem. Any scene with Loki's great, but you know, he's not in the, like, he's in the movie a lot, but not that much. Yeah, the Jane Foster storyline, not particularly attached to her character. It's last, and all of that on top of lack of inspiration or any care put into the film, I feel like. So, yeah, that's Thor: The Dark World. Next up, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I will put into the good tier right there. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a show I thought was really, really, well, the first 2 episodes were fun. Third, 3, 4, and 5 of the show, where I was like, oh god, this is going to be a great show. And then 6 was like, oh, you kind of dropped the ball there. I think episode 6, if I had to judge this show just by its last episode, it'd be down here and disappointing. But I have to judge, since I'm judging the show as a whole, it's up here, because like when the show got good, like particularly with episodes 4, particularly episode 4, it's like episode 4 is like top tier Marvel. But particularly I like where they took the John Walker character. I like some of the ideas. I love Zemo. It's just whenever, like, that last episode felt very, 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 very rushed. Very rushed last episode. And the way it was rushed, it just felt so, God, you're messing it up. No. So watching that last episode, just kind of downfall, was so upsetting to me. But overall, as the show, I thought it was pretty good. Because I'm not in love with the Flag Smashers, but besides that, the characters I thought were really strong. And that's not to say I hate the last episode. Like, I love the last minute of the episode where you just see Sam and Lucky at a barbecue. Like, I felt something there. And to see, and I was happy to feel something, because the rest of the episode, I really didn't feel much, even though that's supposed to be the payoff of everything it built up to. But, and I don't want to seem like I don't like the show, because it's just the last episode I don't like. Because besides that, I like every single episode. I love Wyatt Russell as John Walker. I think the whole cast was great. It was funny at moments. It was serious at moments. What they did with I forget his name, but the old guy Sam talks to. I thought that whole storyline was really good, and the way they paid it off was really emotionally satisfying. Next up, we have Spider-Man: Homecoming. Another controversial take. Putting it up here, along with in the amazing tier. Of course, Guardians a little bit better. Spider-Man: Homecoming is just a movie where I don't understand why people would dislike it. It really is a fun movie. Like, you got a pitch-perfect villain from Michael Keaton who gives a phenomenal performance. You have it was great Spider-Man high school feel, and it was nice to actually have a movie where you genuinely felt that high school feel, because I didn't feel that in Far From Home. But it's definitely prominent in Homecoming, and have those relatable problems, and to see Peter go through those struggles is just so good. And yet it feels so small in scale, but once you feel the broadness and scale for Peter, because you're following him the whole movie. Because I'll say this, Peter being on that plane and just crashing it on the beach felt much bigger than when Carol was going through the big spaceships in outer space in Captain Marvel. And because of a couple things, like the CG's a lot better, it had more emotional payoff, and I cared about the character more, and you're put more in their shoes. When you have a character like Captain Marvel written as dull as she was, like, no offense to Brie Larson, because I think she's a phenomenal actress, I just think, obviously, we're not talking about Captain Marvel, we're talking about Homecoming, but it really shows the difference of what a difference can be between writing of characters. And I think they understood Spider-Man pretty well in the high school terms. Anyways, next up we have Thor Ragnarok. It's going to go into the great tier at the top. Thor Ragnarok is a movie that's kind of depreciated in value as I rewatch it, but it's still, like, when I first watched Ragnarok, I'd easily be in the best tier, but now it's lowered a little bit to the gray tier, because now you rewatch it and you don't necessarily feel the comedy hit as hard. You don't feel as much as you used to watching it for that first time in a packed theater as you do now when you're watching it by yourself and you know the jokes are coming, because this movie is very, very reliant on jokes. And it made Thor a likable character, but it lacked heart to his character because he shows up for laughs. Banner, same with him. I think Hela was a very threatening villain. I thought she was really good. I think Kate Blanchett was great in the movie. Tom Hiddleston's Loki wasn't as prominent as he used to be, I think, in this movie, but I still thought he was pretty good. They did a lot of great defining for the Thor character in this movie. Next up, we have Black Panther, and that's going to go into the good tier above Eternals. Black Panther is a movie it's one of those Marvel movies. You really enjoy it for the first 2 acts. I think it's one of the better ones, and you get to the 3rd act and you're like, oh. Like, the first 2 acts of Black Panther was just like up here, but that last third of the movie just really, and the last third of the movie didn't suck. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as the rest of the movie. You get CG where you're just like, you get 2 CGI armies battling another CGI army. It felt very typical versus how unique the rest of the movie felt. And Ludwig Göransson's score here is really good. The performances across the board, Chadwick Boseman, you almost called him Eric Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, it's just a stacked cast. It really is. Lupita Nyong'o, girl from Walking Dead, I'm sorry. Andy Serkis, Martin something. But yeah, anyways, I still think it's a really good MCU movie. It's the top of the good tier. I think it's the top good tier. But yeah, it's still a movie I really enjoy. It's just that 3rd act just makes me, I'm just disappointed every single time I watch the end of the movie. I'm like, the payoff could have been so much better. But I'll say the scene where Michael B. Jordan's character basically sacrifices himself because he doesn't want to live in his cell for the rest of his life is really impactful every time I watch it. Next up, we have Iron Man 2. Going into this disappointing tier, it's a hard place, because I know my bias and my love towards Robert Downey Jr. versus the quality of the actual movie. Above Captain Marvel, above Ant-Man and the Wasp, above What If. I think, yeah, right there. Iron Man 2 is a movie with a lot of great ideas, but they don't mesh very well. They don't, and that's the thing, they don't mesh. That's a good example of comparison of how Captain America: the last 2 Captain America movies feel. They feel very straightforward, but yet set up a lot of stuff in a subtle way where it doesn't feel shoved down your throats. This movie is trying to have 5 different storylines, but also trying to set up other things. And it's just like really complex, but it's not like a complex story. It's just complex in everything that's happening at the same time, because you have Robert Downey Jr.'s storyline, so many storylines, like, and you don't know what to get away from the movie. You don't know what to take away from it, and you just felt like, I don't know, you don't know what to get out of the movie at the end. I'll say the 3rd act final battle is a lot of fun. A lot of fun with the 3rd act in this movie, because it's just completely, the second, like, the 2 helmets go down, and then it's just that makes me smile every time. Another movie with a villain problem, particularly with Whiplash. I love Sam Rockwell in this movie, but yeah, I feel like he deserved a lot more in the MCU. Next up, we have Avengers Age of Ultron, going into the good tier. I'm sorry for putting it above Infinity War, but I am. This movie, yes, goes way out of its way to set up stuff, and that's definitely the biggest flaw. And yes, Ultron could have been a lot more threatening feeling, but it's one of those movies where I think about it, and something that I like about Joss Whedon's Avengers movies particularly is that it does not feel take it as the Avengers compound per se. When I watch a movie that has the Avengers compound, like in Endgame, the Avengers compound looks all CGI to me, and I'm like, eh. Like when they're in the Avengers Tower, I feel like they're in the Avengers Tower. I feel the physicality of that scene. I feel like the gimmicks and the jokes. It feels very human to me, and it's written a little bit different, and they're not quippy well, they are quippy, but in a more human way. You know, in the Infinity War and Endgame, they're quippy in a Marvel way, if that makes sense. Yeah, of course there are, you know, Joss Whedon eye rolls in this movie, but, you know, I thought the third act was a lot of fun with them just completely sprawling against all these big robots. Introduces Vision, who in Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and instantly kills him. But I think we learn a lot about Hawkeye in this movie, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff I think they get right. And yes, it can feel a little stuffy, but it's that middle installment. I just really enjoy it. I really just enjoy the movie, and I just feel it a little bit. And you know, there's some movies on this tier list I just like it more. There's no rhyme or reason to. If like technically, yeah, Infinity War should go above it, but the fact of the matter is, I just enjoy Age of Ultron. Oopsie. I just come on, let me get this right. The fact of the matter, I just enjoy Age of Ultron more. I'm sorry, and I'm not. Remember, I think I gave Age of Ultron 5 points. I mean, not 5. I think I gave Age of Ultron 7.6 and Infinity War's a 7.5. So they're cutting it close. But point is I just like it more. Next up is Loki, going into the amazing tier right here. A lot of people, I think I like the show a little bit more than most people. I think it's a really, really fun show. And it takes that the first episode. My God, I love the first episode. It takes that psychological deep dive that you always wanted into the character. You dissect every little thing about the way his brain works, and then you get into the mushy little gooey stuff that you just love about it. Owen Wilson's great on the show. It's very creative, and like with his visuals and what they want to do with it, and overall with the multiple Lokis and all that, it's just a lot of fun. I pretty much love all the episodes almost equally, minus 2 and 3. But besides that, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, 4, 5, 6, and 1. I think all of them are just really, really good. Next up, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. Let me see what that's about. Okay, I apologize about that. I got that covered. Anyways, next up, we're going to be doing Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'll say my expectations for the movie was I was going to probably put it in the great or the amazing tier. But just based off the reviews and what I've been hearing about the movie. Like, probably like maybe like right here, maybe around here. But no, it's the best. It's my favorite MCU movie. And I've never, ever thought I would say that in a gazillion years. Because I was skeptical about this movie because where I have, you know, Far From Home, and I think they have the same writers this time, and I was like, they're just going to handle it exactly how I think they're going to handle it. But I feel like they actually did their research, listened to what people were saying about at least Far From Home, and they fixed a lot of it. Of course, you know, it has some first act problems, but I don't care because the second and third act was so perfect and made up for it. So yeah, I just love the movie. You can check out my reviews. I'm not going to talk about this one too long because I just dropped a lot of Spider-Man content on my channel. If you guys want to go check that out, I have a spoiler review, Spider-Man tier list, a regular review. So whatever you want to do, it's on there. Next up and lastly, we have Hawkeye, which is going to go into the great tier right there. It's the perfect little spot to put it at. And over time, it might go down. And yes, people are going to comment. I can see it now. You really have Hawkeye above Infinity War? And yes, it's true. I do. It's my list. I apologize. But, yeah. I thought it was a really, really fun show. Yes, I have some problems with, the first 2 episodes and a couple little gripes with the last episode. But I thought the, episodes 3, 4, and 5 were all really, really good. And, like, I thought the last episode was pretty good as well. It's just I thought I just thought 3, 4, and 5 were just when the show was at its peak, just to have that Christmas feel to it. And maybe it's because it's Christmas time at high ended for me. I don't know. I won't be surprised if this one next time I do a tier list is gonna be around here. I won't be surprised. But right now, it's a place where I want to put it. But who knows? It might stay the same place. Because I had a lot of fun with the show. I thought it was funny. I thought it had heart. I thought it got serious when it needed to get serious. There was a little 1 or 2 more one or two storylines I didn't think necessarily need to be there. Some things I didn't have pay off as well as I wanted to. But overall, I had a pretty good time with it. I thought it was a lot of Christmas fun. Anyways, that is my tier list for all the MCU. This tier list video is going to get longer and longer and longer as we go on. So that's going to be so much fun. But yeah, I'm happy the way this looks. So yeah. Anyways, comment down below what you guys think of this. Don't hate my Infinity War placement because that's what I'm afraid of to see the reactions to. So yeah. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. And adios.